Oh, good. There you are. Let's get started.
When a scientist takes the measure of an experiment, one of the criteria is that the results be reproducible. Being able to achieve the same success on subsequent attempts is highly valued in the scientific community. However, if your scientific community exists in a massive underground complex that is chiefly under the control of a devious artificial intelligence, then the scientific method is, well, open to interpretation.
Oh! Hello? Can you see the portal gun? Also, are you alive? That's important. Should have asked that first.
And so, Portal 2 is not an attempt to reproduce the success of Portal. You already know about the gun that shoots portals and the AI that wants to kill you. Rather, Portal 2 attempts to evolve from and expand upon its fantastic predecessor. The results of this endeavor are terrific, delivering an enthralling single-player adventure, a stimulating cooperative campaign, and some of the wittiest writing this side of Portal.
This next test is very dangerous. To help you remain tranquil in the face of almost certain death, smooth jazz will be deployed in 3, 2, 1.
The game dedicates itself to answering two key questions. What happens now, and how the heck did all that weird crap happen in the first place?
I honestly, truly didn't think you'd fall for that. In fact, I devised a much more elaborate trap further ahead for when you got through this easy one.
The single-player campaign starts by addressing the first issue. Now may be a relative term in the bowels of Aperture Science, but the facility you enter is still reeling from your actions at the end of Portal. Almost immediately, you meet a very helpful and attentive AI who wants to team up with you so that you can both escape dire peril.
Are you? Don't answer that. I'm absolutely sure you're fine. There's plenty of time for you to recover.
Despite the fact that he looks like a metal basketball with a camera lens, this AI is physically expressive and immensely entertaining. His well-meaning yet slightly inept persona is an immediate source of laughter that continues to delight throughout the game. You'll often be so eager for his next line of dialogue that you'll be tempted to just stand around and hear what he says next.
It is tricky, but just plug me in, please. Plug me into that stick on the wall over there. I'll show you something. It does sound rude. I'm not going to lie to you. It does sound rude. It's not. Put me right on it. Stick me in. Yeah, I can't do it if you're watching.
Portal 2 is one of those rare games that can make you want to stand still instead of progressing. And you'll be missing out if you don't do this when the time seems right. It's not long before you find a portal gun and start slinging portals like it was 2007. Those unfamiliar with this technology need not fear. Portal 2 has a very gentle learning curve that quickly brings you up to speed. But the basics are these. Using this gun, you can create two distinct portals on walls, ceilings, and floors. Go into one hole, you come out the other. You start off learning basic navigation, and then move on to transporting objects and entering one portal at high speed in order to fling yourself around the room. This may sound like a slow start to Portal veterans, and from an action standpoint, it is. It's a while before you start to encounter challenging puzzles, but the scenery is so different that you won't mind getting your bearings once again. Aperture Science has seen better days, and the broken test chambers, malfunctioning robotics, and encroaching plant life are an early sign that Portal 2's environments are much more varied and ambitious than its predecessors. Later levels reveal the true scope of the Aperture facilities to great effect, though some of the views aren't all that impressive. When you venture outside of the test chambers, many areas just fade off into blackness, which is kind of a disappointment given the busy industrial vibe of the place. You also encounter a lot of load times throughout the game, and though they're not quite excessively long, they are often long enough to make you take notice and wish they were shorter. As you progress through the single-player campaign, things get more complex in a few different ways. First off, you run into your old test administrator slash nemesis, GLaDOS. Her familiar malevolence is alive and well, but she isn't quite the same. Part of this is due to the fact that her personality followed an ever-ascending arc in Portal, getting better and better right up until the climactic finale. She now plays a familiar role as opposed to a novel one. Her acerbic comments don't have the same shock value, but in a way, this is fitting. After all, she fancied herself an omnipotent puppet master, and you tore her to pieces and threw every piece into a fire. Her self-assurance isn't what it used to be, but her derisive wit is still very much intact and very entertaining.
You are a horrible person. That's what it says. A horrible person. We weren't even testing for that.
A few hours into the campaign, the narrative focus expands beyond what happens now to include how the heck did all this weird crap happen in the first place. In your explorations, you encounter new characters that provide some of the best lines in the game, and your AI companions evolve in surprising and gratifying ways. You also encounter a variety of new testing materials, from catapults to bridges made of light to gelatinous goos that splatter on surfaces and directly affect the way you move through the world. Portal 2 does a great job of introducing you to new tools and then challenging you to use them in clever ways. There are some very tricky situations that you must puzzle your way out of, and figuring them out is always immensely satisfying.
Not bad.
The single-player campaign will likely last at least twice as long as your first Portal playthrough, clocking in at somewhere around 7 to 9 hours. Replaying it isn't very satisfying from a gameplay perspective, but with so much clever dialogue, some interesting developer commentary, and a bevy of achievements and trophies, there's definitely some appeal.
These next tests require cooperation. Consequently, they have never been solved by a human.
Even more appealing is the cooperative campaign, an entirely separate two-player experience that provides hours of exciting new puzzles and environments. You and your partner play as two robots that GLaDOS guides through a series of test chambers. She's a bit disappointed that, as robots, you can't die horribly in the name of science, but that doesn't stop her from putting her perverse sense of humor to work. There are some trips off the beaten path, but the action here is more akin to that of Portal. Lots of clever test chambers that present an increasingly difficult challenge. Each player can deploy 2 portals of their own, and having twice as many portals means you encounter a new degree of complexity. Again, the difficulty curve is very gentle, teaching you the basics before getting down to the tricky stuff. Teamwork is obviously important, and some puzzles require some coordinated feats of timing. To help you communicate, you have a set of simple indicators that you can place in the environment to tell your partner, look here, or place a portal there. Verbal communication is super helpful as well, but if you aren't inclined to chat or aren't able to, these indicators are a surprisingly effective way to get your point across. Cooperative mode also introduces Aperture Science versions of emoticons, little dances or gestures that you can perform for fun. Solving puzzles with a friend is definitely satisfying, but it's also a lot of fun to goof around. Shooting a portal under your partner's feet and then dropping them into a pit may not be nice, but it's a great way to get back at them for the time they yanked the bridge out from under your feet and you got smashed by a spike plate. While the cooperative campaign is shorter than the single-player one, together they provide 12 to 15 hours of very enjoyable, very accessible content.
Hey! Oi, I'm up here! Oh, brilliant! You did find a portal gun! Oh, do you know what? It just goes to show, people with brain damage are the real heroes in the end, aren't they, at the end of the day?
As you journey through the massive Aperture facility, it becomes clear that Portal 2 does not merely come after Portal. Instead, it radiates outwards from its predecessor, simultaneously illuminating the world that gave rise to Portal and continuing the adventure that began there. The sense of novelty is diminished, but the thrill of exploration and puzzle solving is still intoxicating. And it's amazing how Portal 2 manages to tell a better story with disembodied voices and spherical robots than most games manage to with full-on humans. Your return to Aperture Science may not align with your expectations, but this standout sequel is immensely appealing, laugh-out-loud funny, and thoroughly satisfying.
Tell you what, plug me in and I'll turn the lights on. Let there be light. That's, God. Just quoting God. Oh, look at that! It's turning. Ominous. But probably fine, as long as it doesn't start, moving up. Now. Escape pod. It's moving up. Okay, no, don't worry, I've got it. This should slow it down. No, makes it go faster.